The United States Supreme Court has just delivered a decision that will echo through every corner of the nation. This landmark ruling will change the landscape of American gun rights forever, reshaping the way citizens interact with the law and their own rights. In a monumental and historic decision, the court has declared that requiring a government-issued permit to purchase or carry a firearm is unconstitutional, fundamentally altering decades of legal precedent. The entire system of permits, a cornerstone of gun control for generations, has been swept away in a single, sweeping judgment. The justices have made it clear, the Second Amendment right to bear arms is a fundamental right, not a privilege the government can grant or deny at its discretion. This means the legal requirement for a citizen to apply for, pay for, and receive a permit before carrying a concealed handgun in public is now gone, opening the door for millions to exercise their rights without government interference. The same goes for any state or local laws that required a permit just to own a gun in your home. Those restrictions have been struck down as well. The court's decision nullifies laws in nearly half the country, creating a single, national standard that overrides a patchwork of state regulations and local ordinances. Overnight, states with strict permitting systems must adapt, and millions of Americans are left wondering what comes next for public safety and personal freedom. For millions of gun owners, this is a moment of liberation. For others, a source of deep anxiety and uncertainty about the future. The debate over guns in America has just been thrown into a whole new arena, with both sides preparing for the next chapter in this ongoing struggle. The core argument, echoed by the court, is that a right that requires a permit is not a right at all, but a privilege controlled by bureaucrats and subject to political whims. The Supreme Court agreed, stating that the government cannot force citizens to navigate bureaucracy or red tape to exercise a constitutional right, reaffirming the power of the Bill of Rights. All existing state and local permit systems are now legally void, forcing states to rethink their approach to gun regulation from the ground up. The aftershocks of this ruling will be felt for years to come, as lawmakers, citizens, and communities across America grapple with a new era in gun rights and public safety. Before this Supreme Court decision, the U.S. was a patchwork of gun laws, with each state setting its own rules and regulations about who could carry a firearm and under what circumstances. Some states allowed permitless carry, meaning anyone legally allowed to own a gun could carry it without special permission. Others, especially in places like California, New York, and Illinois, required strict permits and imposed heavy restrictions on carrying firearms in public. In these permit states, carrying a concealed firearm without a license was a serious crime, often resulting in harsh penalties. Getting a permit involved background checks, mandatory training courses, fingerprinting, and sometimes high application fees, making the process both time-consuming and expensive. Standards varied widely. Some states were shall issue, granting permits to anyone who met clear objective criteria, such as passing a background check and completing training. Meanwhile, may-issue states gave local authorities broad discretion to deny permits, even to applicants who met all the requirements, often based on subjective judgment. This created confusion, especially for travelers. What was perfectly legal in one state could be a serious felony in another, making it risky to cross state lines with a firearm. Reciprocity agreements were inconsistent, and a permit valid in one state might be worthless in the next, forcing gun owners to navigate a maze of rules and sometimes apply for multiple permits. The system created legal minefields for law-abiding citizens, who could inadvertently break the law, and fueled growing calls for a single national standard to simplify things. The differences in state laws led to widespread frustration and uncertainty for gun owners, who often felt caught between conflicting regulations and unclear guidance. Many saw the permit system as a barrier to exercising a constitutional right, arguing that the Second Amendment should apply equally across all states, without extra hurdles. The Supreme Court's decision has now swept away this fractured landscape, marking a major turning point in American gun law history. The old system is gone, replaced by a uniform national standard that aims to bring clarity and consistency to gun ownership and carry rights. The debate now shifts to what regulations, if any, can survive constitutional scrutiny, as lawmakers and courts grapple with the new legal reality. The era of state-by-state permit requirements is over, ushering in a new chapter in the ongoing debate over gun rights and public safety in America. Why did the Supreme Court make such a drastic move? What led the justices to take such a bold stance on this issue, and what does it mean for the future of constitutional rights in America? The majority opinion was rooted in a specific interpretation of both history and the Constitution, drawing a direct line from the founders' intentions to today's legal landscape. The justices argued that the Second Amendment, like the First, is not something the government can license or restrict at its own discretion. You don't need a permit to speak or worship, you shouldn't need one to bear arms. The court emphasized that fundamental rights are not privileges to be granted or denied by the state. The court leaned heavily on the historical analysis from the 2022 Bruin decision, which requires that any modern gun laws must align with the nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation. They found that mandatory permit systems for law-abiding citizens simply didn't exist in the late 18th century, when the Constitution was written and ratified. The court also noted that permit laws were historically used to discriminate, especially against Black Americans, after the Civil War, when such laws were often tools of oppression. This history showed the potential for abuse in any system that lets the government decide who gets to exercise a constitutional right, raising concerns about fairness and equal protection. Ultimately, the court declared that requiring a permit is a clear infringement on the right to bear arms, and that such requirements cannot stand under constitutional scrutiny. The government's role is to respect that right, not to regulate it out of existence or make it dependent on official approval. The Constitution, the court said, is the ultimate authority. In reaffirming this principle, the justices sent a powerful message about the enduring strength of America's founding document. One of the most surprising twists was the U.S. Department of Justice siding with the plaintiffs. The DOJ argued that permit systems unfairly burden law-abiding citizens while doing little to stop criminals. They presented data showing that states with permitless carry did not see the predicted spike in violent crime. Some even saw decreases. The DOJ contended that law enforcement should focus on prosecuting violent criminals, not regulating peaceful citizens. Resources spent on permits, they argued, could be better used to fight actual crime. This marked a dramatic shift in federal policy and gave significant weight to the argument against permit laws. Critics accused the DOJ of prioritizing ideology over safety, but supporters called it a courageous defense of constitutional rights. The DOJ's intervention was a critical factor in the Supreme Court's final decision. With permits gone, states with strict gun laws are scrambling for alternatives. Many are considering mandatory safety certifications, requiring training, exams, and range tests before carrying a gun. Critics argue these are just permits by another name, with similar fees and delays. Some states, like Illinois, are exploring mandatory liability insurance for gun owners, which could price out lower-income citizens. Others are proposing government approval for every ammunition purchase or limiting access to training courses. These strategies aim to maintain oversight without calling it a permit system. Each new regulation is likely to face legal challenges, setting up another round of court battles. The fight over gun rights is far from over. States like California, Illinois, and New York are moving fast to adapt. California is pushing for a mandatory firearm safety certification, with required training, tests, and fees. The state may also expand its list of sensitive places where guns are banned, a move sure to face legal challenges. Illinois is considering mandatory liability insurance for all gun owners, which critics call an unconstitutional poll tax. The insurance industry itself is hesitant to participate. New York is doubling down on banning guns in nearly all public spaces and tightening regulations on ammunition and storage. These states are determined to limit guns in public, setting up direct confrontations with the courts. The new laws will almost certainly be challenged, ensuring the legal battle continues. The nation is watching to see how far states can go before the courts step in again. The Supreme Court's decision has split the country. Supporters call it a victory for freedom, arguing that the right to self-defense is fundamental, and that permit systems only burdened law-abiding citizens. They point to data showing no surge in violent crime in permitless states, and believe an armed citizenry is a safer one. Critics, however, see the ruling as reckless, fearing more guns in public will lead to more violence and accidents. They argue that permits ensured basic vetting and training, and removing them will empower the irresponsible. Studies linking weaker permit laws to higher gun violence are cited by opponents. For critics, this is a dangerous, absolutist interpretation of the Second Amendment. Both sides are now mobilizing for the next phase of the gun debate. For the average American, the right to carry a concealed firearm is now the national standard. The confusing patchwork of state laws is gone, but new responsibilities and uncertainties remain. While permits are no longer required, other gun laws, like bans in federal buildings, still apply. States are already passing new laws about where guns are allowed, so staying informed is crucial. You'll likely see more people carrying firearms in public, which will spark new debates about safety and community. The responsibility for safe gun ownership now falls squarely on individuals. Gun owners must seek out training and understand self-defense laws. Non-owners must adjust to a new reality. The right to carry is now the law of the land, and every American must navigate what that means for themselves and their community.